Hi friends, it's Becky, and I am really excited to share this design with you. This is a design that I am using beads and findings from the Sweater Weather Companion Bundle from Bargain Bead Box. This is a limited edition bundle of beads that you can get to go with your Bargain Bead Box subscription from their sister store, Bead Box Bargains. And I always have a lot of fun playing with these beads, incorporating them in with some of my designs with my Bargain Bead Box. And in this case, I was going to do a twofer like Jenny did earlier in this week, which if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link in the description. You can go check out both of the designs she did using the Bargain Bead Box and the Companion Bundle. But for this design, I was just 100% focused on this, and so I'm going to do this with you today, and maybe we'll do another Bargain Bead Box design or something that combines the two of them at a later date. I do already have another design that I shared with Bargain Bead Box from their Sweater Weather box, and actually two of them because I did an earring design and then I did a full set using some of the huge filigree components, and so I'll link that as well and my unboxing so that you can see how we liked these. I'll do unboxings for both of these, the Bargain Bead Box and the Companion Bundle, and those will all be in the description below. But this component right here, this multi-point connector, our little guy with his 6 little links there, it is the perfect component for this type of design, where we take our simple links, just simple loops, and connect these all together to make like a mesh design. If you've been on my channel for a while, you might remember I went a little crazy for some designs that were inspired by the TV show Bridgerton, and the jewelry designs that they had on there, the the actual jewelry. And I have a playlist for that. I'm going to be adding this to that playlist. If you want to see any of the other designs that were inspired by Bridgerton, please pop over to that playlist and take a look at them and see how you like them. But this, I think, very much qualifies as another inspired by Bridgerton design. So we're going to be doing that. Now, I have already made the links that I'm making. I'm using 20 gauge wire for that. I'm going to make one link with you, and then we will first make that link, and then I will piece together this mesh portion. After that has been pieced together, then I will add my drops, dangles, and centerpiece, and then I'm going to be stringing on some beading wire for across the neck, and we're going to be stringing beads between some of these mesh portions, and so we're going to be using those. The beads that I'm using are these red rondelle beads that came in the Companion Bundle. They are 3x5 rondelles, and they work perfectly for this. I'm also going to be using some of these drops as dangles and this filigree as my focal pendant on this design. For the strung portion, I'm using these puffy spacers, these gray glass rounds, and more of the red rondelles for that. And we'll do that on some beading wire. I was trying to decide actually if I wanted to use the coral beading wire that I have. It's a bright red color, or if I wanted a darker red like garnet, which I think I just grabbed over here. Yeah, this is a darker red. I'm not sure I've got enough on here for that, but let me just double check because it might just be exactly enough. This is going to be the length around the neck will need to be okay, so this is just a little bit too short for length around the neck, so maybe we will go ahead and go with the red coral, unless I've got more garnet here in my stash, so let me check that real quick. And I do have another spool of garnet in my stash that I think is going to work a little bit better for a red color that goes with this, and I just lost my bead. So I'm going to use this for stringing. I'm going to move it out of the way though first and get my red coral out of the way. Now, just to get these guys sort of out of the way of this, I'm also going to move this. You're going to need 8 of these for this design. I saved 2 out of the 10 that came in here for earrings, so we're going to be doing an earring design to go with this, because if you are going to wear this to a ball, you're probably going to want to wear some earrings too. And then these 8 links that I've already made, I'm also going to set aside so that I can pull them out as needed when we start attaching the others. And so let me just create a link right now with you so that you can see how I do it. Now, I did use my one-step looper to make this easier on myself because I needed to make 39 links. You need 15 of these multiple connectors, by the way, for this part of the design. So the one-step looper made it faster, gave me less strain on my wrists, but I'm going to go ahead and do this with my round nose pliers to create these simple loop links. I'm also going to be using quite heavily my chain nose pliers for putting things together. And then I've got my crimpers for cutting my wire, and I've got a clasp that I want to use. I forgot to get out of here. It's one of the clasps that came in the box. It is very fancy, perfect for this type of design. So we're going to be using that. I've got some 2x2 crimps that I'll be using for crimping my wire, and I'll be using my magical crimper for doing the actual crimping. So I think we've got everything that we need to get started. I'm going to start with the link, and I made all these links basically the same way. I just used the one-step looper in this. If you want to see some of the ways that I've used the one-step looper, I just did a ton of videos making links, showing how I use the one-step looper both either for the beginning and end, or just for the beginning and the round nose pliers for the end. With this one, we're going to go ahead and just use the round nose pliers. I'm going to start about 1/3 of the way down the barrel from the pointy end. You don't need to squeeze really hard, but you do want to just nestle that end of the wire right in there, and then twist until it meets the edge of that wire. And then I like to put my pliers right here below that and give it a little bit of a twist back in order to create the simple loop that is centered. And then give it a little squish with my chain nose pliers to flatten that out a little bit and work harden it. And then I'll usually measure from the bottom of that bead one finger width. Snip the wire, not your fingers, when you do this. I can also get out of the way. And then I need to bend my wire so that when I roll up my loop, it is also centered. So I just bend it across the top like that. This wire is pretty soft, so I can do that easily. If you don't have enough leverage, you can use your pliers to do that instead of your finger. Once that's bent over, you're going to measure about 1 centimeter. I know from experience that this part of my finger is about 1 centimeter wide, so I just use that. Use a measuring tool if you are not familiar with the length of the side of your finger like I am. So now I've got that snipped off with the flush end cut. I can go ahead and roll up, just in the same part of the pliers that we did before, that loop until it meets the end. And now I have a simple loop link. So those are the links that I'm going to be using for this. Now, these components have 6 loops, and let me draw this out a little bit. I've actually got a bit of a drawing already for how these are going to be connected, but let me do a big one so that it's easier for y'all to see. So they've got their big old center part, and then we've got a loop here at the 12 o'clock on a, if we're looking at clock face section. There's another loop down here at the bottom, that's at the 6 o'clock section. 2 loops on the sides. We're going to call this R2 and R4. And then 2 loops on the other side. And this is not to scale or anything like that. We're going to call that 10 and 8. Right? If this helps figure out which points to connect them on, that's fine. Now for this bottom one here, I'm going to have a connection point at 2 and at 10, like when you're holding a steering wheel, at 2 and 10, and this center point will not be connected to anything. And then the 6 will be connected to my focal. So the 6 and the 12 are going to be the ones that connect vertically, and these others, the 2, 4, 8, and 10, the ones on the sides, will be connected to go diagonally off to the side. So we've got the 2 and the 10, and they're going to go diagonally like this towards these 2. And then for this one here, we're going to have the 10 and 8 connected with links to the next one there. And for this one, it's going to go over here, and it's going to be the 2 and 4 that are connected. So you're still going to have a top and a bottom here. After I get all of the mesh part connected, then I'm going to be using the 6 loop on each of these components along the end to attach my little dangles. And along the top, we're going to be using the 12. Actually, no, we're not using the 12. I decided to change that. It was a totally different prospect. Okay, so I'm not going to be using the 12 to connect it to my necklace. We're going to be looping through these as we string. So that's how this connection is going to be going. So these are for diagonals, and these are for either connecting the top or the bottom. So that's how that's going to go. I hope that makes sense and makes it easier for you to follow what I'm doing when I'm connecting these. Alright, so let's start with this first one. And it doesn't actually matter which one for my first link I connect to, because everything else after that will be oriented to the way it goes. And these are double-sided, so it doesn't even need to be facing the right way when you start. Now, I did initially do my proof of concept for this with some 18 gauge wire, but the 18 gauge wire was a little bit thick going through these loops. And that's why I switched to 20 gauge, is so that I have a little more freedom of movement on that. And so actually I wouldn't have to work as hard to get it through the loop and get it into that. So this is 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and move over to, let's say this is the 10, I'm going to move over to the 2 for the next one. And 2, just like we're driving hands on the steering wheels. So now we've got the start of this made. I'm going to connect the other link to one of these connectors. And again, the orientation of this isn't important until after I connect it. So that link is going to end up being the 8 for this link. And then I'm going to take another link and attach it to the 10. So let's lay this out and show you. It's super helpful to lay this out when you're doing this so that you can see how it's going to go. So that's going to go diagonally in, and then we're going to have another one that goes diagonally out, but I'm going to connect that after we get the first little square built. So we're going to keep that end clear on that too, on that side. So this one we're going to want to connect to another link. This is going to be in the 4 position for this link, which we haven't determined what the 4 position is. Whichever loop I put it through, that's now the 4 loop. Alright, and once again, lay it out to make sure that this is right. So if that's the 4, I need to connect something to the 2 position. It's just the loop right next to it if it's laying out there on that side. So you can go diagonally up. Alright, so now those are going to go diagonally in. So I need to choose one of my links to connect those two. And I'm going to connect this side first. Doesn't matter which side you'd connect first. These are reversible, so I can turn it around anytime I want until I get my dangles connected. Alright, so this is going to be probably, if I'm going this way, that's going to be my 8 position, and I want to connect this other link over here to my 4 position. I want to leave this up and down link, this loop and this loop, I want to leave those alone and just work on these ones on the sides. So I'm going to connect it here to this one. Let's make sure our links are all rotated the right way when we do this. There we go. Are my links rotated the right way? Let's find out. Because if they're not, I need to turn it around. Probably. I think probably. Yes. This link is not rotated the correct way. So let's turn this around because it was not laying flat. This is a gotcha. It's something to pay attention to when you're doing this. This will be a fiddly project. So it is going to take some patience to go through and do this. Alright, alright, alright. So that's flat, that's flat, that's flat. And that is this way. Okay. I don't need that anymore. Let's not confuse ourselves. All right. At this point, this could be the bottom or this could be the bottom. Either way, it works. But now that I've got my little square created here, I can build up and out from there. So let's go up along the side, attach another link on there. And for this, where I've got this one connected here to the 8 o'clock position, I'm going to connect the next link to the 2. So it's just on the opposite side of this whole wheel from this link on this edge. Is that the one? Yep. Okay. And then we'll connect it to this link. And then we're going to want to connect a link here. Actually, these two would be the ones like that. So I'll need to connect a link here, and then connect both of them to that one. And again, we're going to go up here. If this is the 4, that's the 2. That's where I'm going to connect this next one, because it's on the sides, and the sides are where we do our diagonal ones. 2 is diagonal up, 4 is diagonal down. And if it helps to look at my little numbering thing again, why don't I actually leave that right here while I'm doing this as a good reference. Okay, so that's 2, 4. I need to put this on the 2. That's going to be the loop right next to it. I don't know what about this box has prompted me to do like the most complicated designs possible, but it has. It has absolutely inspired me to do these fun designs where I'm just like connecting all of these pieces together in multiple ways. I don't suppose that's a bad thing. Alright, so I've got my 8 connected here. I want to connect my 10 to this new link. On this end. And while I've got this link in my hands, I'm going to open it up. And attach this connector. Let's lay this out again. Make sure all my links are turned the right way. And that is connected to the 6, or no, not to the 6, to the 4 on this one, right there. So I need to connect this next one to the 8. I need to do that by making sure we are in the right place and that there's a little 6 in between them. Alright, let's make sure it lays flat and doesn't twist up. Alright, so I got it at the right orientation for that. Alright. The question is, do I continue up this end and then fill in gaps later, or do I continue up this end and work my way up? I think I'm going to work my way up, actually. So that means I'm going to be working over here on this side of my board. And I'm just trying to set this so that it's still visible for the way that I'm referencing these things. So this next level is connecting here to this one. And then here and here to this, like that. So for this one, I've got it connected at 2 and 4. I need to connect this to 10 and add my next connector. Alright, so on this side, that next connector is now connected to the 4 of this one. I need to connect the 2 on this one to another link. Hold on, what did I do? Oh, there we go. I turned everything over. Okay. That was confusing to me for a minute. I was like, wait, where did everybody go? So that's going to be going diagonally this way, and this one's going to be going diagonally that way. So I'm going to connect this one. It's already got a link on 2, 4, and 8. So I'm going to connect it to the 10 loop on this one right here in the middle. Helps if you go in at the correct angle. Struggle with angles sometimes. While I've got this open, I'm going to go ahead and get this end of my link connected to my next connector. And now this end needs to be turned the right way. I'm going to connect this to, it's connected to the 4 on my new connector, so I need to connect this end to the 8 on this connector. So let's pop this open. Make sure we're all turned the right way. Wonderful. Alright, so hopefully this gives you an idea of how to connect this. with all these different pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build up the rest of this using those same principles of connect the side and then do my middle piece and then another middle piece and then come back and do the other side. I'm just going to work across what I've laid out here. And I'm going to do that until I have all of my links and all of my connectors that I currently have on my bead mat connected into a whole setting. And I'll be back to you when that is done. Okay, now I'm not completely done. I have this last connecting row. On this one, I've connected most of the connectors on it. I just have these two here on the corners that we're going to connect because that's all part of this last row. But instead of connecting each of these to one of these connectors, they're going to be strung onto the jewelry. And so I wanted to show you guys this because it could probably be a little bit confusing if you are just looking at my design and you're like, wait, where do I connect these two to? If you're following along and doing this from home. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. This has already got the, where did I put it? There it is. This end here, it's got the 10 and 8 connected. So I'm going to connect the 2. It's on the opposite side of that 8. So I'm going to get my link connected onto there. Right there on the end. And it's not wide enough, so let's just twist that a little bit more. There we go. Alright, while I've got this in my fingers, I'm going to open the other end of my link, connect this connector, because this is the corner connector. It's the up at the very top. It's the last piece before we start adding our row of these links on top. So since I've got this connected here, I'm just going to go on the opposite corner. So this is the 8, this is going to be the 2 for this link, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this and add it right here to this connector. And keep going across. So let's lay this out and look at where we are. So that's going to go in that direction. So now I need another one going in that direction. So to do that, I'm going to connect this to the 10 position. So I've got the 2, the 8, and the 10 connected. 10 position. And I don't have to worry about connecting this link to anything else because it's just going to end up strung between some beads when we get that on there. Alright, so now I've got those 2 going out that way. This one also needs 2 links going out from it in both directions. And this link has its 4 and 8 positions connected. Let me just pull these guys up so that you can see it in context. So it's got its 4 and 8 positions. I'm going to connect it to the 2 and 10s. So it's just going to be 2 and 10s for all of these connectors all the way across. It should be a little bit easier to do this because you don't have to worry about whether the link is facing the right way when you're just attaching it to these connectors. We can worry about it facing the right way when we go to string it instead. And the stringing is probably going to be a little bit fiddly too. But while I was doing this, I was sort of deciding that it'll probably eliminate some of the fiddliness in attaching my dangles at the end, or to this, if I wait until after I string it, because the stringing will give us some stability, because right now these are just going to be all floppy. until they actually get strung on there. Alright, so next one, we're going to need to attach to 10 and 2. And I'm just moving my way across here until I get to my corner, and then I'll add this little corner bit. So it is a very structural kind of a design. Which I like. I like structure. It makes me happy. I like seeing how things interconnect below and above to the other bits, but see how it's all floppy and not very steady. Once it's strung, this part will still be slinky like that, which is how you want it when you're going to be wearing it. Alright, so we need a 10 and 2 on this one. There we go. And 2. Alright, so now I need my corner bit here, because that is not going to be up high enough for it to get connected to the strung portion. So let's get this connected there, and then we can 10 and 2 this piece. Speaking of 10s, go. This next connector, once I get it on this link, the loop that it's connected to will become my 4 position. There we go. And now I can connect these to the 10 and 2 there. Let's do a 2. Maybe I'll just do the 10 there, and then we'll do the 2 in just a sec. There we go. Alright. Now, like I said, I think we're going to go ahead and wait to add the dangles until after this has been strung, because again the stringing will give us a little bit of stability, especially along the top, and it won't be so floppy when we're connecting links to it. And it looks like everybody is turned the way that I want it to be, and I am loving that this all works together. I'm going to start from this corner though and string along the top to make sure that I have the right spacing for my beads. If I need to add any extra spacers in there, I'm just going to go ahead and use these for that. I'm going to pour these out in case I need them. So this part will be a little bit of a trial and error, but I am going to start with this guy, because instead of these being connected to the connectors, I'm going to be putting these in between each of these links. And then between those links that way, we're going to have these beads like that. So let's start with this. I'm going to go ahead and work from the spool and start with one of these puffy spacers and then string through like this. And then let's just add these guys in, see how we like them. See if I need to add anything else to this design. This is one part planning, one part trial and error for this. Is that enough of a V for me? Hey, let's try focusing. There we go. Let's find out. I'm going to do a couple more and see how I like how it drapes. It's possible that these might be too close together, this part, or it may be perfectly fine. If they are too close together, I might be able to squeeze a little bit extra in there. Let's find out after I get this next one in. And my big limiting factor in this design is going to be my gray beads because I do have a more limited amount. Let's get this next section in here, see how it looks. I can always take this apart if I don't like the way it sits and start over and add a couple of extra beads in here to space things out better. Don't think the spacing is as wide as I want it to be for this part, but it might be. I think I'm going to know better after I get the rest of this strung on. So let's get this strung all the way across and then check it. All right. I think that actually is going to be pretty well spaced. When all is said and done, let's get the rest of this on here. And then check it out. think we've got like rice husks in here, making it a little bit difficult for me to get my wire through. Let me see if I can clear that out with a piece of wire. Alright, that's better. Yeah, I think that that is very decent spacing for those. I mean, look at that. Look how it drapes. In love with it already. In love with it already. Let's get these other beads on here. And then start beading along the edges. Let me see if I have enough beads to bead along the edge without adding some of these extras, or if I'm going to need to play around with the length a little bit. If I do need to do additional length, for instance, here, once more, these are my limiting factor. I was thinking a few of these seed beads could be a little substitute in the string length, especially around the back of the neck for my round beads in this design. Like that. But let's see how long we get it with this on this side. And then if I need to add any with the seed beads, we can add that then. Right? This box was challenging for a lot of people. I've had a lot of fun with it though, but it did really sort of start to flex some of my design muscles. It hasn't been the easiest to come up with things for. Jenny did a fantastic job though on her twofer that she did. Once again, if you haven't seen it, there will be a link for it in the description below. Alright, I'm checking the length so far to see what we've got. That is in the middle. Okay, yep. I'm going to need to add a few seed beads here to the end. I think 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 should be about the same width as the others. The same length along the strand, and then 1, 2, 3. These are just those 11-0 seed beads. They're a light gray with silver line, kind of an opal light gray. They'd be a good neutral to use to kind of continue the same color story up the sides, even though the beads are a little bit smaller. This does need to fit fairly close around the base of the neck, so let me double check that size again. Okay, I think that's perfect. So I only need to add 2 more rondelles, 1 more of these spacers, and intersperse them with 4 sections of 3 seed beads each. Right, before I do anything else, I'm going to put a little bead stopper on here. Scooch these down. Let's make sure we have room for crimping. And make sure we've got enough wire for the other side. And we do. I'm gonna just, this end is sticky from the tape that holds it on there, so I'm just going to snip that little bit off there so that the beads go on more smoothly. Alright. Okay, friends, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. All right. Just making sure my beads are right here for doing the rest of my stringing. This is going to be so pretty and sparkly and perfect to wear to a ball, to scheme with the other mamas about our children finding matches. Right. Now let me double check where we're at with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And 1 more of those. I think I had an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay, perfect. Alright, so 3 seed beads. Rondelle. 3 seed beads. My puffy spacer. 3 seed beads. And a rondelle, and 3 more seed beads. Right. Yep. That is going to work beautifully, I believe. Right there. Okay. Just double checking my length by putting that around my neck with both of these pinched. And I'm going to bead stopper that end and get out some crimps to crimp my necklace. Where are my crimps? I think we're going to go with gold. This is the closest to this antique brass. Okay. So let's go ahead and crimp it onto here. Put a crimp on, go through the finding, go back through the crimp. Alright, and then once I've got a good loop, I do want to have a little bit of movement here, so that is a decent size loop for that. It's not going to be too tight. I'm going to make sure that I center my crimp in my magical crimper, divot, give it a smush, and now that I've got a little ravioli, I'm going to turn it to the side. So it's at 90 degrees. Make sure it is centered again. Give it another smush. Oh no, it looks all crooked. That's fine, because I'm going to keep going around and hitting it from different angles, making sure it's centered each time I do, and give it a few more little smushes. And as we do that, it smooths out all those edges and gives you a nice round ball of crimp that is very secure. Okay, let's get that. Just curve this a little bit so there's a little bit of slack in the wire before I crimp this other end. And I think what I want to do with this end is go ahead and just do a loop and then attach this part with a jump ring, because for toggle clasps I like my toggle to have a little more articulation than you can get with it just being connected directly to the wire, and adding a jump ring will give me that extra articulation. So now we're just making a loop. I want to use my thumbnail to make sure that there's a little bit of space between my crimp and those beads right there. And then I can do my crimping. Just like the other one, initial smush, 90 degrees, and then go around and do little smushes from all the different angles. This project is a combination of both beaded chain and strung. Ugh, I love the way that that sits. That is so cool. Let me grab a jump ring for this. And then we can start attaching our dangles and the other focal. You could probably be absolutely fine wearing this or having it stop right here with this design. Quite proud of it just as it is. Trying to find a good jump ring. Yeah. But I am going to be adding some extra embellishment along the bottom edge of this. Alright, so now I've got my toggle clasp. That part is done. Now let's add some drops and dangles down here onto this part. And to do that, I've got my links. Now that number that I gave you earlier, that 39, that included these 9 links, and that's 8 for each side and 1 for the center. The center one will be connecting this focal to the middle, and then the ones on the sides will be connecting these little charms. Now, something to notice is the orientation of these loops. The orientation of the loops on this is perpendicular to the orientation of the loops on this. This loop is parallel to this one, so I can use one of my links that is parallel. See, the loops are in the same orientation on this one. I can use one of these that's that way to connect that. I'll set that up here for now. But for these ones, these are in opposite directions. So I am going to take my pliers and I'm going to turn each of these loops so that they are perpendicular instead of parallel. So right there, they are parallel, and now they're perpendicular. And I'm going to do this for all 8 of these guys that these drops are going to be connected from. That way the drops will hang correctly. And it was just easier for me to do all of them parallel when I was making en masse, and just do this little twist to correct after I've made all of them. Okay, one more. Just going to swing this open while I have it here in my hands and attach my dangle to it. If I only have to deal with the awkwardness of attaching it to this once, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do the same thing with these other 7. See, already it's not even attached and it already looks fantastic. But yeah, these connectors are so perfect for this application. These little 6-point connectors. Absolutely the best way to do this. Alright, so let's start over here and get this connected. I'm going to bring out the notebook again. For each of these, we're going to have the 6 section be what we're connecting to. The bottom, if they're oriented with the inside loop being the 12. So let's make sure we're connected the right way. Nope. Turn that around. Because there is a right side and wrong side for these, we do have to pay a little more attention to how we're connecting these guys. On there. This one here. Yeah, I'm feeling better about my decision to wait until after it was strung to do this part, because that is a lot easier to handle than all of these flopping around. I'll move that out of the way though, because it is getting in the way. I don't know why my bead mat shifts as I'm working on it, but it always seems to do that. Have you guys noticed that? Like, I might start out with it totally straight, and by the end it's like all skewed over to the side, and I don't know why that happens. I think you might tell how good my bead session is by how lopsided my my bead mat is at the end of it. Oh, good indication. Okay, there we go. It's nice and slinky. And it's got some movement, so it'll smile when it's on your neck. Loving, 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 loving all of this. I'm so pleased. But yeah, if you weren't able to get your hands on the companion bundle, they might have some of these components available at Beadbox Bargains. Sometimes they have 1 or 2 items in those bundles that had limited amounts, and then plenty of the rest of them. So go ahead and check and see if they have some more of these connectors, because they are honestly fantastic for this application. And you don't have to use these beads. You could use totally different beads for this if you wanted to make something like this. If you're not quite into red, or if you're super, super into blue, like so many of my friends are. I think Jenny was saying she wanted to make something like this as well. And I'm excited to see what she comes up with. Of course, she's going to do it differently, because we're different people. But it is a pretty fun adventure in keeping things straight and paying attention to what you're doing. Oh no, that's the wrong way around, I think. Yep, let's turn that around. See what I mean? Paying attention to what you're doing. Move. Alright, do I want to go this way? I think I want to go this way. Okay. Yes, perfect. Hey. What are you doing? And one last one here. No, 2 last ones. Oh! I skipped. I skipped several of them, I think. Or this one came undone. Oh. How come you came undone, friend? Let me see if I can fix this thing. Because I think my loop is just not looping right. And that's why that one came undone. Okay. so that's a much better loop. Swing it open and then swing it closed. Where am I going? I skipped one of my sections on here. I don't know why I did that, but that is okay. Two more. This is definitely a labor, but in my opinion, it is worth the fiddling and it is worth the time that it's going to take, because the end result is just fantastic. This is not one of those it looks complicated but it's really easy kind of designs. It looks complicated and it is, but it's absolutely doable if you pay attention to where your connections are while you're putting this together. Absolutely doable. Alright. And now, last but not least, let's add our pendant in. Make sure these are twisted around the right way. Yep. Perfect, perfect, perfect. That's going to hang right there with this link. Loop. I mean, I could connect it with a jump ring, but when everything else is connected with these links, that feels like that would just be a major cop-out, and I'd be missing an opportunity to add a little extra sparkly red right there on that design. Right. Whew. So finished, so done, so pretty. I am so happy with it. Let's do an earring. I'll just do one earring with you and then finish the other one on my own. Let's see, I've got some of these, one of those. How about, where's my wire? How about if I do a link with these, like that, maybe? Or the opposite way? Alright, let's try it. Let's just go ahead and do simple loops on these. Simple loop. Put my beads up there. Measure 1 finger length. And this is going to want to be a parallel loop. So I'm going to hold on to the beads and that loop at the bottom and bend over the top with my fingers. Measure about 1 centimeter. Give that a snip. Roll that up. Alright. this loop formed, I can open and close it, attach my dangle. It's going to be a fairly simple, understated kind of an earring, but I think it's going to pair really nicely with this design, because honestly the design is going to be taking all the attention, and this is just going to be something that emphasizes it, that accents it, that makes it so you pay a little more attention to what you're looking at there. And then I've got some ear wires that I'll make real quick and add to it after this is over. But I just wanted to make sure that I shared with you how to put this together, how to have some fun with it. I'll make the other earring afterwards and add some ear wires. There we go. I'm going to put links in the description to unboxings of both the bargain bead box and the companion bundle. We'll put links to the other makes that both Jenny and I have made with both of these bargain bead boxes, and a link to the site where you can sign up for bargain bead box, because even though this was the companion bundle, bargain bead box is one of the most popular bead boxes for a very good reason. It is always beautifully curated. Sometimes it's a bit of a challenge like this one, but most of the time it is not as challenging. I think this is a very one-off kind of a thing. So we'll put those links in there. It is one of the best value for money bead boxes out there, and they have a ton of beads available at their sister store. As a subscriber, you get 30% off. Every month you get a new coupon that is valid for 2 more months, and it is just a ridiculous place to shop. I spend way too much money there. Not complaining, but I spend way too much money there, and it is definitely worth it to get the bead box and then also to have that discount for subscribers. Alright, until next time, my friends, happy beading!